A week ago, I made a video about the notorious big game James Franklin, and you guys loved it, but didn't want it to stop there with requests of a Ryan Day follow-up video, so I got you. This comment just sums it all up. Ryan Day is the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's. Today, I'll be explaining every top 5 matchup Day's faced since being named the head coach at Ohio State, plus the devastating chokes against the team up north, and at the end, I'll be answering the question, what is wrong? Remember, he's got a $20 million roster. If you love college football, smash the like button and subscribe. 2 easy things to do, but it helps the channel tremendously. Thank you guys. A very quick background of Ryan Day for those who don't know. He started his college coaching career all the way back in 2002 at the University of New Hampshire, his alma mater, as a tight ends coach. And after that, as you could see from this list, Day was passed around more than your girl at last year's Halloween party. He even spent some time on Chip Kelly's NFL staffs in 2015 and 2016 until finally touching down in Columbus as the assistant OC and quarterbacks coach in 2017. After a controversial ending with then Buckeyes head coach Urban Meyer in 2018, which luckily wasn't as bad as the Paterno Sandusky scandal from the Penn State video, Ryan Day was moved to the interim, then full-time head coach prior to the 2019 season. Now let's get this straight before we get into it and all of you start crying in the comments. Ryan Day should be held to a higher standard than most, if not all, coaches in college football. Ohio State is second in NCAA history in all-time total wins, top 10 in national championships, third for all-time NFL draft picks, and have had many legendary coaches including Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, and of course Urban Meyer. This is not Bowling Green we're talking about. Keep that in mind during the rest of the video. Ryan Day was taking over a powerhouse program with one of the largest fan bases and most resources available in the sport. Anything short of a national championship is a failure for the Buckeyes faithful. Ryan Day's first matchup against a top 5 team came in the 2019 Fiesta Bowl, which was also a college football playoff semifinal. The Buckeyes entered the game undefeated, 13-0 as Big Ten champions with a loaded roster led by Justin Fields on offense and Chase Young on defense. Both of these guys finished top 5 in Heisman voting. Clemson still felt like they were in the prime of their 2010s run with Dabo Swinney because they were the defending national champs and brought in an experienced roster led by a sophomore Trevor Lawrence. Ohio State jumped out to a 16-0 lead in the first half, but missed opportunities proved costly later on. A controversial targeting call on Shaun Wade late in the first half shifted momentum in Clemson's favor, allowing Lawrence to eventually find his rhythm. By the second half, Clemson adjusted on both sides of the ball and executed big plays to get back in the game, and the Tigers went on a brutal 29-7 run to close the game, sealing a 29-23 loss. But even if the Buckeyes won this game, they were still going to get rolled by that 2019 LSU team, let's be honest. Day faced Clemson again in the 2020 college football playoff semifinal, and it was a revenge game for the Buckeyes. This matchup carried more weight than the last one, however, because Ohio State had been heavily criticized for playing a shortened COVID Big Ten schedule. Clemson was a heavy 7-point favorite in this game, and everyone counted the Buckeyes out. But Ohio State delivered a statement performance, dismantling the Tigers 49-28 in a game that showcased Day's ability to adjust and also inspire his team. Justin Fields threw for 6 touchdowns despite taking a brutal hit to the ribs. Meanwhile, Trey Sermon dominated on the ground, putting up 191 on 31 carries, keeping Clemson's defense off balance the entire time. Ohio State's defensive line dominated, and the secondary capitalized on turnovers. Now, this win was monumental for Ryan Day at the time, silencing haters and earning Ohio State a spot in the national championship. But unfortunately, to this day, this was the last time we saw Day and the Buckeyes in the Natty. The 2020 national championship game, Ohio State faced a juggernaut #1 Alabama. They were completely outmatched. This Tide team had Heisman-winning wide receiver Devontae Smith, quarterback Mac Jones, and running back Najee Harris. The Buckeyes' win over Clemson gave people hope, but injuries and COVID leading to over 20 players out or questionable for OSU was hard to make up for. Alabama overwhelmed Ohio State from the start, exploiting mismatches in the secondary and also controlling the line of scrimmage. Devontae Smith had a record-setting first half with 12 receptions for 215 yards and 3 tutties. The 52-24 final score solidified the gap between Ohio State and the SEC's elite programs. It was a tough wake-up call for Ryan Day and all Buckeye fans. Almost as important as national national championships to Buckeyes fans, or even more important in some people's eyes, is the annual game against Michigan, the biggest rivalry in all of college sports. If you want to be considered a competent head coach at Ohio State, you must be able to beat the team up north. 2019, Ryan Day had no problem in his first matchup with the Wolverines. 2020, the game got canceled, and in 2021, the major issue started to materialize. Ohio State faced Michigan in Ann Arbor in a high-stakes game with playoff implications. Michigan entered ranked number 5, while Ohio State was ranked 2, riding an 8-game win streak in the rivalry. The Wolverines' physical dominance in the trenches defined the game. Michigan's O-line paved the way for Hassan Haskins, who rushed for 169 and a ridiculous 5 touchdowns. On the other side, D-end Aiden Hutchinson terrorized Ohio State's offensive line, recording 3 sacks and disrupting Heisman finalist C.J. Stroud's timing. OSU's offense, which had been fantastic all year long, was stifled. The 42-27 loss not only ruined the Buckeyes' playoff hopes, but also in hindsight marked a turning point in the rivalry. The 2022 edition of the game saw Michigan come to Columbus ranked number 3 with both teams undefeated. Now Ohio State really wanted redemption after the previous year's loss, and a playoff berth was on the line. The Buckeyes started strong, taking a 10-3 lead, but mistakes, including blown coverages on defense, shifted the momentum. J.J. McCarthy was a star that game, tearing up the Buckeyes secondary, throwing 3 long touchdown passes. Running back Donovan Edwards delivered the knockout blow with 2 long touchdown runs in the fourth quarter as Michigan pulled away for the win 45-23. This loss stung worse than the last one, as it marked the first time Michigan had won in Columbus since 2000. Even with the loss, though, Ohio State still earned a berth in the college football playoff, looking to get the bad taste out of their mouth with a win against Georgia. The Bulldogs were the defending national champions and also heavily favored, but the Buckeyes enter motivated to prove their worth after the Michigan loss, and it showed. The game turned out to be an instant classic. Ohio State led for much of the game, with C.J. Stroud delivering against Georgia's notorious defense. Stroud threw for 348 yards with 4 touchdowns, using his mobility to extend plays and also evade pressure. Wideout Marvin Harrison Jr. was a key weapon before being knocked out of the game due to an injury, which severely impacted Ohio State's offensive rhythm in the second half. The Buckeyes led 38-24 after 3 quarters, but their defense collapsed. Georgia got back in the game, but with one final chance. A 50-yard field goal was missed by Noah Ruggles in the final seconds, and it was a heartbreaking 42-41 loss. Ryan Day's 3rd straight loss came to Michigan in 2023, again with playoff implications on the line. Michigan was ranked 3. They entered confident and battle-tested, while Ohio State wanted to end their recent struggles in the game. It was close all the way through, but 2 interceptions by Buckeyes quarterback Kyle McCord made the difference. The Wolverines won 30-24, extending their streak to 3 games, and people are having serious questions about Ryan Day. His teams couldn't play physical enough or disciplined enough to stick around in these rivalry games. And a similar story happened in 2024 against the Oregon Ducks. A trip to Autzen Stadium was going to be a tough challenge for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, facing number 3 Oregon. Now, the Ducks under Dan Lanning had a balanced attack, a disciplined defense, and one of the most electrifying home field advantages in college football. Oregon's offense, led by Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart, exploited Ohio State's defensive vulnerabilities. Missed tackles, blown coverages, and losing one-on-one matchups allowed the Ducks to gain significant yardage. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes' offense struggled to find consistency, with the run game being almost completely shut down. Ohio State had a chance to get in range for a game-winning field goal in Oregon territory, but unfortunately a miscommunication between Will Howard, the offense, and coach Ryan Day meant they lost the game. The 32-31 loss marked Ryan Day's first defeat against a non-Michigan top 5 regular season opponent since 2020. With the loss to Oregon just a few weeks before, it only made Ohio State's road matchup against number 3 Penn State that much more important. Ryan Day's Buckeyes secured a hard-fought 20-13 win in Happy Valley, and it was critical in keeping their playoff hopes realistic, and it also restored some confidence in Ryan Day. When you have 2 big game chokers going at it in Franklin and Day, something had had to give. Penn State got off to a fast start, intercepting Will Howard and returning it for a touchdown, but it was never the same after the first quarter because the Nittany Lions scored 0 offensive touchdowns the entire game and only scored 3 points in the second half. Howard bounced back, going a solid 18 of 24 passing with 2 touchdowns, and although OSU lost the turnover battle, their red zone defense won them the game. Ohio State's next top 5 matchup was surprising because it was against number 5 Indiana, and no one expected the Hoosiers to be playing so well. For the Buckeyes and Day, this game was a chance to maintain the momentum from the Penn State win and prove that they were still the class of the conference. No one gave Indiana a chance, and it was for good reason. They just could not match up anywhere near talent-wise with the Bucks. The game was tied at 7s late in the second half until a muffed punt led to an easy OSU red zone score, and from there the Buckeyes ran away with it, outscoring the Hoosiers 24-8 in the second half and winning by a score of 38-15. Back-to-back wins against top 5 opponents? Why were we hating on Ryan Day that much in the first place? Before it gets catastrophic, Ryan Day's record against top 5 teams currently is 3-7, which for most programs is good, but like I said earlier, this is not most programs. Ohio State expects championships every season, and they haven't made a natty in 4 years. What's even more concerning is that they also have not won their own conference in the same amount of time. Ryan Day is making $10 million per year and is the 5th highest paid coach in the sport. $10 million to lose big games, lose to your rival almost every time, and not win natties. That's a harsh reality. Speaking of Michigan, let's talk about the game in 2024. Arguably one of the most embarrassing losses in recent college football history. 19.5 points. That's how much Ohio State was favored by. Why? Well, because they were a few snaps away from being perfect on the year. They constructed a supposed $20 million roster through NIL, which was arguably on paper the best in college football, and Michigan was in the midst of a barely bowl-eligible down year where they lost 18 starters from the national championship team a season ago. One more thing, this game was in Columbus. How does this happen? Ryan Day did not use his talent and speed advantage on the outside with wide receivers like Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka against an injury-ridden Michigan secondary. Instead, he tried to prove a point by winning in the trenches, and just like the last 3 times, it didn't work. Who would have thought? Michigan is built to beat OSU in that way, and I think everyone knows it. It's gotten so bad that even if Ohio State wins the first-round playoff game against Tennessee, there will 100% be an asterisk on this season. 4 times in a row, fans are done with this. It's the most important rivalry in the sport. So what's wrong with Ryan Day? He's insane. He keeps doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. He cannot call a game. He cannot adjust in the second half, and he just doesn't have it in him to coach a high-stakes program like Ohio State. He doesn't. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I've been Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football content.